Everybody can take their seats again. Awesome. Okay, so this is the fabulous Sarah Goodenough of Kitchen Verde. We're so happy to have you here today. She's going to talk to you guys.
No microphone?
Oh,
I would.
sure.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi guys. I feel like I should sing a song right now. Okay, so my name's Sarah Goodenough. I own Kitchen Verde, which is a whole food plant-based meal delivery company here in Rochester.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We also do catering too, so it's 100% whole food plant-based, vegan, oil-free. I started it about 2 years ago, and I'll tell you a little bit about my journey to getting to this point. About 8 years ago, I was in nursing school. So I'll tell you a little bit of background first. I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry, moved back to Rochester from Boston, and decided to go into nursing. So in nursing school is where this plant-based journey kind of started for me. I had a good friend that was vegan, and I didn't really understand what veganism was back then. I just knew that she didn't eat meat, she didn't eat dairy, and her reason was moral and ethical reasons. And we used to share like book ideas and recommend books to each other. She told me to read the China Study, so I ordered it on Amazon, read the book, and realized that everything that I had learned up until this point was pretty much wrong. So at that point, I was researching online whether or not this was actually real and legitimate, and come to find out it was. So at that point, I decided to do more research, and I started with watching documentaries like Forks Over Knives, reading books like How Not to Die. From there, I kind of went into reading research studies because I wanted to understand it from the actual source. So fast forward a few years, I had gone 100% plant-based shortly after I read the China Study. And I lost about 100 pounds in the first year. So give or take, I'm not really good at remembering like the details of things, but it was around a year where I lost most of the weight. And then from there, I've lost a total of almost 160 pounds. So I was originally 309 pounds. And just to give you a little snapshot of what it was like being 309 pounds, I was 22 at the time. And I was recently diagnosed with fatty liver disease, which my physician told me, and this, like looking back, I feel like she was much more of a forward thinker than a lot of other physicians were at the time, because she immediately told me that the only reason that I would have fatty liver disease at such a young age would be that I was eating too much meat, dairy, and high-fat processed foods. So she recommended some dietitians and nutritionists. I didn't go to any of them. That was right around the time that I read the China Study. So I guess like looking back, everything kind of came full circle and happened as it should have. I reversed the fatty liver disease 2 months after when I had to get repeat labs. Everything was fine. I also had high blood pressure after my first pregnancy, so that was an issue that I was dealing with then. And on top of it, severe asthma, so I was on steroids all the time, using my inhaler much more frequently than every 4 hours or as needed. So all of these problems over the course of time kind of vanished. I still have asthma, I've had it since I was a kid, but I haven't been on steroids in over 6 years. And the only thing that I need to do now is use my inhaler before I run, and it's more of like a preventative, just in case type of thing. So throughout the journey, I started realizing that, okay, well maybe now I can start to work out because I've lost all this weight, I don't have the pain anymore, and I was terrified before of working out or running or anything like that because I just assumed that I couldn't do it. And I started to take this workout class with one of my girlfriends, and it was treadmill based, which to me was terrifying at the time. But the trainer in the class said, well, nobody just can run, a mile or 10 miles overnight. It's a build-up, it's a gradual practice. So I started by running like a minute at a time and then building it up from there. And I was actually amazed to see that my body didn't hurt and ache the way that it used to when I would simply walk upstairs. I noticed that my breathing wasn't as bad or affected nearly at all when I started working out, which was something that I had a huge issue with before. I mean, I would start wheezing after eating pizza, which now I know is related to the dairy also, but it was so severe that I couldn't walk upstairs without having wheezing issues. So I was noticing that I was capable of a lot more than I thought I was, and I just kept pushing and pushing. Last year I ran my first half marathon, so that was 13 miles, and then this year I'm running a half marathon and a full marathon. So this plant-based the plant-based diet definitely helped me realize that I was capable of doing so much more than I thought I was. And a lot of this too was learning about basically perception and cognition, mindfulness, things that when I started I believed that I was always going to be overweight. I believed that I would be this way forever. I was always going to have these health problems. There's no way that I can resist eating a full pizza. There's no way I can resist eating a bag of Doritos. I just believed that that was the way that I was going to be. Then I started researching a lot of the mindfulness and the psychological part of being overweight and losing weight or making a lifestyle change. And a lot of that stemmed from trying every single diet and program that was out there. I mean, I did Weight Watchers, Advocare, the Atkins diet, which is absolutely terrible, as we all know, everything. And I would lose the weight, but then I'd end up gaining it back. So nothing was sustainable, and I can't do anything where I have to put a lot of effort into the details of it. So when I learned about this plant-based diet and realized that this was not really a diet, it was a lifestyle, it kind of opened my eyes to all the lies that you learn with dieting and weight loss and all of these programs that are out there. They all tend to work from the outside in, which really doesn't make sense. So you're trying to strive to be skinny or look a certain way when really you should be working from the inside and then out, because it starts from within and it starts from your experiences, the way that you believe you are, the beliefs that you have about food and yourself. And you start to realize when you look into these things that a lot of what you think is just that, they're just thoughts. And they're just beliefs that you've created from thoughts and emotions and feelings that you've had. Once you kind of look at these things objectively, you can actually change your thought patterns and you can change your beliefs about yourself. And at first it feels really weird because you're telling yourself these things that you don't quite yet believe yet, but you understand that if you work on it and you practice it, that you will be able to change it eventually. So you keep doing it. It feels awkward, it feels really weird at first, but then you start to realize, okay, you believe them. So I changed my thought process from I'm an overeater and I use food as a coping mechanism to food is something that I use to make myself sustain health, to feel better, have energy. Food is something that I use to fuel my body, not to help with my emotional or coping issues. So it started with that, changing that belief about myself, and then evolved into many other things. And also during this process, I learned the importance of visualization. And actually a lot of Olympic athletes use this technique to help them in a lot of their athletic training, practicing, or getting ready for big marathons or races, competitions. They actually visualize themselves down to the smallest detail, doing, feeling, and being in the experience that they're about to have. And they go through the entire visualization, recognizing what clothes they're wearing in this visualization, so they can actually feel the way that they want to feel winning whatever that race is. So I learned that from this book called, I think it was Psycho-Cybernetics or something like that. And I started practicing that with myself. So I would visualize myself wearing this is exactly what my visualization is, so bear with me. But I was wearing like yoga pants, I was wearing like an athletic tank top, I was standing in my bathroom, it was sunny out, it was spring, I was wearing these black and white running shoes, and I was feeling really energetic and really healthy, and I was getting ready to go out and run and work out. And this is when I'm 309 pounds, mind you, and I never wore yoga pants then, I didn't run, I didn't think that, and there was anything enjoyable whatsoever in exercise, but that was how I wanted to feel. I wanted to be one of those people that really liked exercise and really wanted to feel healthy and energetic. And every day I practiced this for 5 minutes. Like I just closed my eyes, I'd visualize how I felt, what I was wearing, where I was at my healthiest and at my best. And I think that helped a lot too, because fast forward and I was able to do all those things. But visualizing yourself being there helps you change your beliefs about yourself and your surroundings and your perception of, for me it was food and how I reacted with food and what I did with it. So these were like important tools that I used to kind of help overcome a lot of the issues that I had. Once I did this and decided that plant-based was the best, most nutritious way to feel my best and be my healthiest, that was it for me. So I changed my lifestyle then. I stopped weighing my food, I stopped measuring it, I stopped counting points, I stopped looking it up to see if it was healthy or not. I finally made this lifestyle decision that I didn't have to like think so much about. I didn't have to think about every little detail. And I'm not a detail-oriented person at all. In case you haven't figured it out, because I'm pretty sure I've been all over the place with this story. But it was honestly like the best thing that could have happened to me, and it all happened at the same time. So it's really funny how the universe, like I said, it just unfolds the way that it should. And all of these things just kept happening and making me feel like, okay, well, this is the right direction to move. This plant-based diet thing, I'm pretty sure this is like finally like the lifestyle change that I need, the diet that I need to go on. And from there, like after obviously reading and seeing all these documentaries, it just confirmed my new beliefs about this lifestyle. And then from there, I realized that not only did the plant-based diet fall within what I thought was true health, which was preventing these chronic diseases that we have, but it also fit well within my morals and ethics, and not just about animals, but about the environment, and also like honestly like our moral obligation to make the world a better place, even if it's just through one person making these conscious decisions. And I think that if people really think about it, a plant-based lifestyle falls within most people's moral and ethical obligations or feelings toward what we should be doing as human beings. And to me, it just all came full circle. And I can't honestly, like, it just makes the most sense to me that this is the way that most of us should be eating, and not just for our health, but also for ethical and moral reasons, for our environment, and the pure simple fact that this is what would honestly save our earth. So there's just so many things that I've kind of realized along this journey, and I'm still learning and still going through it. Right now I've focused a lot on my endurance nutrition, so that's kind of the part where I'm at in my journey right now. Changing beliefs about protein needs, and even within the plant-based or vegan community, sometimes people still think that you need this protein, so they're drinking tons of protein shakes and extra protein supplements and things like that. But what I'm learning through doing my own research is that our body really only needs a certain amount of protein. As Ted mentioned, that's a much smaller amount than what everybody else thinks. And if you're consuming much more protein than you need, then it has to go somewhere in your body that it doesn't really belong. And it overworks our kidneys, it causes problems because you're consuming too much of it, so your body has to work harder to get rid of it. So I'm learning kind of like what foods are helping me with pre-workout, post-workout, as opposed to using the supplements that most people use. So before I work out, instead of drinking one of those sugary pre-workout drinks that give you a lot of energy, sometimes make you tingly and feel like your body's not even real, which is really weird. But now I use chia seeds because omega-3s are great as a pre-workout to sustain the energy when you're doing endurance running. And I also use like kind of like higher sugar fruits like pineapple, dates in a like a little smoothie. I'll use that as my pre-workout now as opposed to the powdery drink that I used to use. And then in terms of post-workout, I don't use protein supplements. I will make a little smoothie, but it'll be, with kale and spirulina, which actually has a ton of protein in it, more protein than any food like that exists. So I've kind of figured out different ways to replace these traditional workout drinks and supplements with things that are whole foods and plant-based. And I'm experimenting with different things too. So it's been a really fun journey because I've just been through so many different parts of it. And I'm really liking like this whole endurance nutrition thing and kind of learning how to get rid of the supplements, the things that, you're spending like a ridiculous amount of money on one protein powder when you can just buy whole foods like kale and broccoli and you're getting all the protein you need. And I've been doing really well with building up muscle. I work out, let's see, I do at least 4 runs a week right now, but I'm also training, so this isn't all the time. And then I do weight training 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm exceeding like even what my trainer was expecting because she's not plant-based or vegan, and she tries to do like a lot of the nutrition component of it, so she wants me to have a protein shake after. So she's even been surprised to see like what I've been able to do without using the supplements and just focusing on the whole foods. So yeah, it's been really fun, and I know I've been kind of all over the place, but if you guys have any questions, I'm totally open to answering any. Yeah.
How did you go from being vegan to learn how to cook and have your own business?
Okay, yeah. So I've always loved cooking. It's something that I've just enjoyed doing. I used to have people over all the time just so I could cook for them. So when I went plant-based, it was like this whole new challenge, which I really like and enjoy doing. And cooking without oil was definitely the biggest issue. And by the way, I originally started not going oil-free, and then I decided to go oil-free for a week and noticed a huge difference and just never went back. So I bought the China Study cookbook. It was really the only plant-based oil-free cookbook that was out at the time. And I tried several recipes in it, and I wasn't liking many things. Mind you, I'm coming from eating like McDonald's cheeseburgers all day, like grilled cheese sandwiches, things that, in the standard American diet you would eat. So making like this avocado-based like pasta dish was just not for me at the time. So I decided I learned the different things that you use for oil-free plant-based cooking. So instead of using eggs, you use flax. Instead of using like a 1/4 cup of oil, you use applesauce or a banana. And once I learned the basics of it, you can pretty much take any recipe at that point, and I'm talking like non-vegan, non-plant-based recipes, and replace the ingredients with the ingredients from the whole food plant-based replacements. So once I started doing that, I took things that I was familiar with, like meatloaf. I loved meatloaf at the time, so I made a lentil loaf and replaced a lot of the ingredients that were, like the eggs and the dairy that were in there with plant-based ingredients. And then from there, I just kind of built on it, sticking to standard American diet dishes that you're familiar with when you're eating that way, but just making them oil-free and plant-based. And this made it so much easier for me to transition. Once I started eating these things regularly, your taste buds do change, so I started to crave them and like them more. And then I was ready to try like the kale salads and the kind of stranger things that I wasn't really familiar with before. And once I did that, by then I really liked these flavors and they were something that I craved and wanted. So I just kind of built on that and decided, when I kind of went through this existential crisis, like after working in the medical ICU at Strong was where I worked as a nurse. So after working there for a while, I'm like, I just feel like I have to do something more. Like there's something I need to do with what I've learned about nutrition and preventing disease. And here I am working with the sickest population and seeing the end result of years of chronic disease and symptom management from prescription drugs and medications. So I felt like there was something I had to do. So I ended up actually going through the post-bac pre-med program at U of R, and then decided like, oh, I'll do preventative medicine. That's something that interests me a lot, and that's a good way to get it out there and in practice. And then I have 2 kids, so I didn't feel like going through the years of medical school and that you had to go through. No offense. And honestly, at the time, I'm like, I have 2 kids. I don't know if I'll even have time to get through this. So I decided the best way to get it out there is to just make the food. Like, make the food, have people try it. I didn't even make this big hype about a plant-based diet can prevent and reverse disease. Like, that was, I wanted people to just try this like as food. Just, you're going out to a restaurant and it's just food. It's nothing more than that. So I started Kitchen Verde out of my house. I was meal prepping for a friend of mine that actually had high blood pressure. He was a bodybuilder. And he was 30 and he was symptomatic, so he had these headaches. He was having trouble sleeping. I took his blood pressure every day for a week straight. His blood pressure was well over normal. It wasn't even pre-hypertensive at this point. He was like stage 3 hypertension. So he was terrified, didn't want to go on any medications, and actually around this time his trainer, his bodybuilding trainer, had a stroke. He was in his 40s. And I'm like, well, that's going to happen to you because you're eating steak twice a day, chicken 3 times a day, and he'd eat like a dozen eggs for breakfast. So, and this is what his trainer gave him as a diet plan. So, and I'm telling Nate this like throughout the time he's training for his bodybuilding competition. Like, because he lived with us at the time. He was one of my roommates. So I'd watch him eat this and be like, oh my gosh, this is a recipe for disaster. Like, I tried not to be too preachy to him because I never wanted to come off like that. Like, he's got to make his own decision. So finally when...
What's wrong with being preachy?
Well, I didn't want to push him away because you got to be sensitive with the bodybuilders. They are like psychotic about their meat and protein. So finally I let him come to me. So that was my plan with him. He came to me when he realized that he had a problem, and especially after his trainer had a stroke, which I told him I predicted was going to happen. And he's like, just help me. Like, can you make the food for me? I'll help you go grocery shopping. I'll help you prep it out. So we did that. I did a meal plan for him. I made sure the calories fell within the same calories that his trainer was making for him. I just did all plant-based replacements for it. And I still followed the 80% complex carbs, 10% protein, 10% fat. Actually, I want to say we did like a 12 or 15% protein just because he was working out quite a bit. So we did that, and after 3 weeks, his blood pressure went completely back to normal. And I'm working full-time as a nurse at this point, and he's like, you have to do this for other people. And I'm like, nope, no way am I ever starting a business. That's not for me. I like cooking, but I don't want to make it my career. So obviously I did. I started out by just having other people, like my family and friends, kind of go through it. I had my cousin go through it. She lost 12 pounds and got ready for her wedding, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is great. She put it on Facebook. So from there, people were like writing in, Facebook messages to us like, can we get on your meal plan? So I'm doing it out of my house, working full-time as a nurse. I have 2 kids. I'm like, this is really insane. So I would take a couple people at a time every week, a couple new people at a time, just to make sure that I wasn't like getting in too deep. And from there, it just grew, and I started renting a restaurant kitchen on the weekends in Brockport. And it was a Mexican restaurant. They were only open Monday through Friday, which was really strange. But the owner of the restaurant allowed me to pay $50 rent a week, and I could come in there on Saturday and Sunday and use his kitchen to cook the food. So me and Nate, who is now one of my chefs, we decided to go on the weekends when we weren't working and create these, dishes and foods. And I had a Facebook page. I made a Kitchen Verde Facebook page. I put the menu up every week, and then people would write in what they wanted. They'd either comment or send a message in. And then from there, Fridays I'd get home from work. So before I put the menu up, I calculated all the nutrition information by hand, which was so frustrating, and thank God for the programs that do that now. And then I would create a grocery list from there, convert all the recipes, and then go shopping and do all of that. And then what I would do, what Nate and I would do after work on Mondays, we would deliver all of the orders to people at their houses, which sometimes would be up till midnight, which is crazy on a Monday night. So then from there we grew some more. We ended up moving into the commercial kitchen at Lorraine's Food Factory on the corner of Culver and East Main. We moved in there, not last summer, but the summer before that, so this was 2.5 years we've been in there. And we've been there ever since. So it's grown quite a bit and it's evolved so much more than I could have imagined. I think I've heard Ted talk about building a plane in flight. That's kind of what I did at Kitchen Verde, because I really didn't expect that it would pick up as much as it did. At the time, nobody was really knew what plant-based was. They weren't really into it. But like I said, I didn't. When I first started, I didn't really focus on, you know, this is gonna save the world. It was just try this and see how it is, and just taste how flavorful this is. Like I'm not eating salad and, you know, asparagus all the time and that's it. Like this is like real awesome food. So that was my goal with Kitchen Verde, was to just give them the food so they can try it and see that, okay, well, plant-based, vegan, it's pretty good. And then you can kind of talk to them about the health benefits and all the other things that come along with it, and it just helps to convert people.
How can we order food from Kitchen Verde?
Yes, so kitchen-verde.com is our website. You go right to the order menu page, and our menu does change every week. We have breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. We have kombucha on there. We have a guilt-free dessert every week. And it's, like I said, it changes every week, so it's always something different. And you have from Thursday to order, and that's for pickup or delivery on that Sunday.
You mentioned part of your growth was visualizing, I think you said, right?
Yes.
And, you know, I just imagine your experience looking in the mirror back when you were overweight, like you said, versus now is profoundly different. I
Yes.
guess.
Yeah, definitely.
But you were able to visualize what it seemed to become.
Mhm.
As a nurse, you've been caring for other individuals. Have you seen a way to care for other individuals by helping them visualize?
Yes, so I actually coach a lot of our customers just by default, because most of our customers are not vegan or plant-based. They're coming to us with no knowledge or understanding of how to apply it. So I've used this technique with every single person, and it works amazingly well. It's actually a technique I learned from a book called Within. It was written by a physician also, but it's a book called Within, a guide to love and weight loss, I think it was. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. Like I just read the China study, this is gonna help me lose weight. Well, the book was completely about the psychological aspect of a lifestyle change and understanding what goes into it from your brain's point of view. So visualization was a technique I learned from that book, and like I said, it has helped immensely with so many of our customers. And it's literally 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes before you go to bed, just visualizing where you want to be, how you're feeling at your best, and I mean, it works, it really does. And honestly, I used it in other aspects of my life too, so I used it with the business and Kitchen Verde and so many other things too, so races and running and things like that. So.
Does it work on the lottery?
Haven't tried it, but probably. I'll say yeah, let's be positive. Any other questions?
What's the name of the book again?
Within. And The Power of Habit was also another book that I read. And that book taught me that you can pretty much develop and change any habit in 3 weeks. But you have to pick something. So you pick a habit, you have to do it at the same time every single day for 3 weeks straight. And this seems to be the cutoff time for developing a new habit. So that's what I actually did with the plant-based diet. Because when I started, like I told you, I didn't cut out the oil. I still ate dairy once in a while. I would go 100% plant-based for like a week, and then I would be like, oh, I'm gonna have some pizza on this day. So finally I'm like, okay, this is not how you sustainably make a lifestyle change, and decided to commit to it for 3 weeks, and I haven't looked back since then, so.
it seems like from both your talks, it's almost like saying, our body already knows how to be healthy.
Exactly.
So, is there some way in the process where you've gone through it and you discovered, like, do you feel like this is what I was meant to be? You come to that, like, is there kind of an experience you thought, which told you this is the way I am and this is the way I'm supposed to be as opposed to the way I have been?
Yes, absolutely.
Repeat the question.
So he's asking if at any point I was like, this is the way that I'm supposed to be, like this is the right choice. Is that what you're saying, the right choice for my body?
Yeah, but I mean, maybe go into a little detail about how that became a realization of yours.
Okay. This is a deep question, I have to think about
Yeah,
it
it's
for a second. So when I started this, like I said, was 309 pounds. I have dealt with weight issues my entire life, since as long as I can remember. And a lot of it was emotional stuff. I mean, I was clinically depressed and I had anxiety when I first started this journey. I've had it since I was a kid. So, and I was medicated for it also. So I've used food as a coping mechanism. I've gone through this for a long time. I've always gone up and down in my weight. And then once I hit college and moved to Boston from Rochester, was away from my family, that's when, I mean, I was so emotional, I just turned to food all the time. And being depressed, clinically depressed, and having anxiety issues, you're constantly turning to food for that, like, make me feel good for 1 second, because you just feel like crap all the time and you're miserable all the time. So once I was able to, and this all comes from education, and I honestly think education is the key to everything in the world. Constantly learning through this journey, through this process. I think you guys are starting this vegan living program today, right? So constantly educating yourself through this process, watching the documentaries, reading the books, reading the articles is what, it's really gonna help everything stick. And really that's honestly, like, I feel the key to making big improvements anywhere in the world and in our lives is just constantly like educating ourselves. And I totally got off track, and I'm sorry, where did I leave off with your question? Okay, yes.
Are you still working full-time as a nurse?
No, so I left nursing full-time last summer. I still work per diem, but that's getting to a point where I don't know if I can anymore. But that's like 1 day a month, so, yes.
So going back to your nutrition about endurance,
Yes.
what about beets? I keep hearing that beets and beet juice.
Yes, beets are like, I forgot to mention that. I have beets all the time. So they are really good at cleaning out the free radicals in your body, and they're great antioxidants. They are like the new biggest thing in Whole Foods, really, but that's, again, going with the reductionist theory. But they are really great for pre and post workout when you're endurance training.
Are you eating whole beets or?
I do, I eat whole beets. I eat whole beets and I put beets in my pre-workout.
So that's not reductionist, you're eating whole food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. But I'm focusing on one particular food, because that's right now, you're gonna notice too, like when you're reading through all these things and educating yourself, there's a lot of these articles out there that are like, these are the best foods for this, and this is the best food for that. But stick with the non-reductionist approach, which is just eat all of them. There are certain things that when you're working out or training or you know, especially with endurance training, there's certain things that help you with your performance, like having the extra chia seeds, the extra energy boost before you work out. But other than that, if you're just doing this for health reasons, just eat everything that's whole food plant-based.
I have a question.
Yes.
So Kitchen Verde, is that something delivery only, or if I'm in the area, can I come and grab a meal real quick, or?
Yes, we actually just, I forgot to mention that, we just started having grab-and-go meals 2 weeks ago. So you can come in anytime, Monday through Friday, up until 5 o'clock and pick up meals if you'd like to. But it is delivery or pickup.
Would you have to pre-order?
Yes, you do, yeah.
What are your hours?
Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5. And then Sunday is our pickup day, so we're open 10 to 3.
So let me clarify, with the grab and go, I would order it online and then come in, or you just have some pre-made meals I can just stop like, oh, I love that brownie, I want some more?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. you can just stop. So you want to pre-order if you're going to order like a bunch of meals,
Got it.
but if you want to just stop by for one meal, you have them there too.
And where are you located?
777 Culver Road
In Lorraine.
in Lorraine's, yep.
And I'll synopsize, is that a word?
It is now.
Yeah.
Summarize.
I'll summarize, thank you. I'll put it all into an email for the group so that you don't have to remember every single thing, but along with, can I mention your coupon code?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Sarah has generously offered a coupon code to the vegan pledges and coaches.
Yes,
Oh,
yep.
vegan pledges and coaches, and it is love a cow. All one word.
I love cows now. Skylands, I went to Skylands and I'm like, I just love cows now, so.
So if you place an online order, you can enter that code at checkout, and you'll get 20%.
20% off, yep, and I made it so it's for the full 5 weeks, right? That's how
Yeah.
long the program is, so it's for the full 5 weeks.
Thank you, that's very
Thank you.
generous.
Yeah, of course.
Will we be
Anything
able to
help
get
you.
Ted's slides?
Ted, she wants to know if she could get your slides, are they available?
Would you be able to share them in that?
It's a little tricky, but what are we gonna use it for?
Patient teaching.
Talk to me afterwards, because I have thousands of slides, and pulling them out is actually kind of very time consuming.
Okay.
And Ted, if you want to come up here too, if anybody has any other questions for Ted, you can tag team these two
Yeah,
wonderful
sure.
resources while we have them.
Maybe you could speak, Dr. Barnett, maybe you could speak to patient teaching. There was that question, is there certain materials that you would recommend for? There's several nurses in the room, I know, and the patient teaching question came up earlier.
So that's a really good question. There's bibliotherapy, which is having people read books, and there's video therapy, having them watch a movie. So what movie would everybody here recommend? Forks Over Knives, exactly. So if you can get a patient to watch Forks Over Knives, that's really great. Our speaker, by the way, I didn't mention, we have the Lifestyle as Medicine lecture series at the Academy of Medicine every month. Unfortunately, our speaker next week was in a bicycle accident. He's okay, he's going to live. But Matt Rosigno is not coming next week. He was going to talk about the plant-based athlete. But it's hard flying in a chest tube. So, yeah. But then the month after that is going to be Rob Ostfeld, a cardiologist at Montefiore in New York City, and he has actually worked it out with the hospital, where there is Forks Over Knives is running all the time on one of the state channels.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so that would be something, if you could get your hospital, which hospital do you work at?
I work at family practice now.
Oh, family practice, yeah. So, yeah, if you can get Forks Over Knives, and I've got extra copies of that DVD, but that's definitely worthwhile. The vegetarian starter kit is great. I don't know, what do other people recommend as things that they found very motivating? Because that's really what it's about. There's sort of two things about this. And so the first lecture I give in my 12 lecture series is the history of dietary recommendations and the politics of it. Because I think what people really want to know is, well, this is true, what you're telling me. Why don't I already know this? And you need to understand all the forces that are arrayed against learning these things. It's bad for a lot of people's businesses. It's just not good. You can imagine, right? And the dairy industry has, conniptions when we talk about this. But anyway, so if there's any way that they can learn a little about the politics of it, actually Marion Nessel has a blog called Food Politics. She has a book called Food Politics. But if you go to her blog, it's more actually for your information. I'm not sure how great it is for patients, but you should check it out. So she's really involved. She's a professor down at NYU. She's been doing this for years. She's not personally vegan, although I think she's pretty vegan sympathetic. So other sources.
Just coming from a nurse standpoint. So I worked in the ICU and I did community health nursing right before I started this. And I would get patients that were recently recently discharged from the hospital and diagnosed usually with like new heart disease or cholesterol. And they would never talk to them about nutrition, which we all know. So what I did was developed my own nutrition sheets. So when they would come home from the hospital, I'd bring these to my patients, and They were just kind of an overview of like the statistics, so like the health statistics of going from a, you know, standard American diet to a plant-based diet in terms of disease prevention. And then I would do an overview, like I made a kind of like a food pyramid of it, so they're understanding from something, like a concept that they already know. And then I would list like foods to clean out of your pantry, things to have on hand all the time, and then recipe ideas. So the recipes were obviously the most important component of that, but that helped with a lot of my patients that were just coming out of the hospital completely misinformed. So it gave them an overview of how they could apply this to their life.
And reading the book Reversing Heart Disease by Caldwell Esselstyn, I find that very motivating.
Yeah.
So that's really one of my favorite books. I usually recommend that. I mean, there are other books out there, but there's so many, you kind of have to pick one. That, yes.
I think of Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die, as a Bible.
It is, yeah, How Not to Die, but
And
it's
nutrition
massive. It's just, but nutritionfacts.org, that would be a place to send patients to just watch videos.
And they're short too.
And actually, his book, I mean, it is a great book. Has everybody read How Not to Die? It's probably the best book out there. And Michael Greger, I think, is the greatest synthesizer of medical information alive on the whole planet. So there's all this information out there, right? We know all this stuff, but why doesn't anybody do anything about it? Well, it requires people to put it in practical terms. It requires synthesis of that information. That's what causes change. I mean, you know, so an example I like, well, hand washing, right? So hand washing, we think that's just part of the background, right? Well, it wasn't really proposed until 1847 when Semmelweis noticed that women were dying less in these maternity wards when people washed their hands. But do you think anybody made any changes? No, they didn't. And he actually ended up dying in an insane asylum because people thought he was so crazy. So it wasn't until like 30 or 40 years later when we actually had a mechanism for why we wash our hands, you know, Pasteur and Koch and things like that, where people started washing their hands. And then think about radical mastectomy. That was started in 1890. The last radical mastectomy was probably performed in, 1990. I mean, it took 100 years to get rid of radical mastectomy. There was never any evidence for that. So I'm just talking about this.
The evolution. Yes, the evolution of nutrition. and how we-
Right, yeah. Thank you.
We're both going on.
It's fascinating.
I think I need more protein.
I have ADHD, I will admit that.
So the point is that, making these changes is, the healthcare system needs, I know, we were talking about Michael Greger, and synthesizing the information, right? The information is there. We know all this. Why don't we do anything about it? It's because we're humans, and we're social animals, we do what everybody around us is doing. It's just really hard to make these changes. But when enough people in our culture make this change, it's going to happen really fast. I feel like the wave is about to crash on the beach. I really do. We're really getting there. In which case, then we're going to be out of business. Because everyone's going to go
Starting the new business.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Sarah,
Yes.
you talked about your grab-and-go meals. Do you publish them online, or are they always the same, or?
Nope, they're right online on our menu.
And they change week to week?
Every week, yep. Yeah, we're on an 8-week rotation, so every 8 weeks it repeats itself.
there's a question back here.
I have a question on multivitamins, because there's some plant-based doctors that say, yes, multivitamins, some say no, because they're good enough from food.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that because I remember I forgot to tell you guys about B12. So we don't, I mentioned it briefly, but we don't recommend any supplements except for B12 and probably vitamin D for most people in this room.
What about children?
Even for children. And let me tell you about B12. So, B12 is not an animal product, it's made by bacteria. It's in dirt, it's in untreated water, but we live in a very unsanitary environment. We just don't get B12. And we're not eating animals, so we're not getting it. Now, you store enough B12 in your body for at least 3 years, maybe 5 years. She just read it like it was 5 years. You store a lot of B12, so it takes a long time to get B12 deficient. But when it happens, it's really bad, and you don't want it to happen. And if you don't, some people think, well, I don't need it because I'm eating special seaweed and stuff like that, and I'll get my B12. Don't count on it. Just take the supplement. It's like one little pill you gotta take once a day. Or if you forget, you can go 3 years. Right? So, but at least take it every week. And here's the thing, this is why you need to do it for the movement. Because it is true that some people never get B12 deficient, for whatever reason, even if they're not taking it. Maybe their gut's making their own B12. We're not really sure. But If you get B12 deficient and you get sick and die, or your kid gets really sick and something bad happens, it will be a headline in the newspaper. And it'll be about vegans. They'll say, vegan dies from B12 deficiency, right?
Yep.
When a meat eater dies from a heart attack, does that make it into the paper? No, because it's 2,000 times every day, right? A vegan gets sick from B12 deficiency maybe once a year, maybe 100 times a year, I don't know, but it's not that much, right? But that's what everyone says, oh my God, you can't be a vegan. What about B12? So just take the B12 supplement, you need micrograms. You can't even see the amount you need. You need 2.5 micrograms a day, but the tablets are actually like thousands of micrograms because for various reasons. But yeah, so B12, but multivitamins, no evidence that they help. And as a supplement, there's lots of evidence that supplements can be bad for you. Do people know the vitamin, the beta-carotene story? So with beta-carotene, it's known that, well, so smokers who eat a lot of vegetables have lower rates of lung cancer. Did you know that? It's a significantly lower rate of lung cancer. So in Finland, they said, well, that's really interesting. Maybe we can make a pill. So, and so they said, well, what is it about vegetables that make it less likely for you to get lung cancer? Well, it must be the antioxidants in vegetables, right? Which it may very well be. There's thousands of different antioxidants in vegetables. But what's a really famous antioxidant? It's the one that makes you orange when you eat a lot of carrots. It's beta-carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A. So they gave smokers either a placebo or a tablet of beta-carotene. And after 5 or 10 years, I can't remember, what do you think they found? Did the smokers have the same amount of cancer, less cancer, or more cancer if they were taking the placebo or the tablet? What do you think? It turns out the smokers who got the beta-carotene supplements had more lung cancer. Because, and it makes perfect sense, we did not evolve eating supplements. We evolved eating food that contains thousands of different things all mixed together. So and lots of fiber. Yeah. So that's why even, so we don't really know that much about multivitamins because there's so many things in there, so many different supplements.
Even with kids, because I just listened to Dr. Furman's book, How to Disease-Proof Your Child, and he said he recommends because I have a 2- and 3-year-old, and I'm just kind of worried about them getting their all their vitamins.
I don't have great evidence that it's bad for you to take a multivitamin. So probably multivitamin is probably okay. The one thing that we know you need in there is B12.
Yeah, they
right. And and women should have folate, but who are going to get pregnant, right? So they don't get neural tube defects, spina bifida. But that's pretty well known now. I think folate is now in bread.